IPMNation.com.
Good evening and welcome to All Natural Being here on Mortal Up Radio. I'm Brian Brawdy, hanging out at IPM Nation right before we get ready to launch over on Facebook for our Fly on the Wall video. I want to take this opportunity to thank you. This show would not be in the number one time slot through now, 277 episodes if it weren't for you. Yes, you, right there, you, who I'm talking to. If it weren't for you and your support, we would not be number one. So thank you so very much for that. All right, we're going to get ready to go. Let's head on over to Facebook Live.
Live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Well, that's how that goes, huh? You'd figure it's only taken me 277 episodes to figure that out. Welcome and good evening. Thank you for stopping by the number one rated show here on IPMNation.com. It truly is a pleasure of mine to be celebrating our 277th episode of the Gong Heard Round the World. Remember, you're in to All Natural Being, broadcast as it happens here on IPMNation.com and Facebook for Fly on the Wall video. Always live from the Outpost here in Columbus, Ohio, with rebroadcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio. For everyone listening to us over on iHeartRadio, thank you very much. Greetings wherever you are, here in the Garden of the Mortals, the labyrinth of life. Here's your shot at running the table. Everyone says, oh, I need my shot at the ring. This is it. That's why we're always putting your heart's highest priority top of your list, right? May not feel normal, but it's most certainly natural. We're placing your primal scream front and center in your life. Again, all natural. Reinstalling and reinstating the true wisdom and wit. Don't forget the wit of your inner whisper. It's time to reboot your robust, to find your ferocious, to outbrutal the brutal that is the cut and shuffle that fate deals you on a daily basis, and to bring your own bold. But before we hit it today, hello to my friends here in the United States and Canada, Mexico, the UK, my good friends in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands. Thanks so much to those of you joining us from all over the globe. It really is great to have you with us. I'm truly fired up to be driving your bandwagon, to be your biggest fan, to be, as always, avidly you. But let me ask you, are you tired of being institutionalized by the intentions of another, convicted by the constructs of another, remanded to a prison of rhetoric, either yours or another's? I was too. That's why it's time to mortal up. So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. And this evening, as I promised last evening, I'm very fired up to have my good friend Henry Noel is here with us in the studio. Henry, good evening. Also, Rita is with us as well. Nice to see you, brother. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
You know, you came up with a really great, you come up with a lot of great ideas, but let me just say this one if I could. I liked your idea of free-for-all Fridays.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, wow, that's pretty smart. That's a pretty sharp idea. What if we go ahead and say, great, I'll go ahead, load up the thread over here, and then Henry, what if we go, let's just do free-for-all Fridays. Call in and talk about anything that you want. What do you think of that as an idea?
I think that is perfect, because that, I think, is really what it's all about. I mean, we can sit here and preach and preach and preach, but what everyone out there listening is really more interested in, and what they have questions about. And this, I find, so many times we'll touch on subjects that are close,
Sure.
but not quite on cue. And I think this will give everybody a chance to just, let's vent.
Right.
You want to vent?
Right.
Well, you got two people willing to listen. So,
Yeah, I vent all the time.
Well, we've
Yeah.
heard that. So.
You've heard that. Well, I want to get back to that in a bit, but let me say hello to a couple people in the thread. My brother Ian is in the thread. Ian, you should know, every time I say to our friends, I really mean my family listening in the UK, thank you so very much, Ian, for joining us. Also, Michael, watching and waiting. Thank you, Michael. I hope whatever it is, we're glad to have you watching. I hope whatever it is that you're waiting on, that we're going to be able to bring it to the paint, if you will. Ooh. And, earlier we were running around today, Henry, and Rita said, you guys going back and forth for the last 10 minutes, that should have been a show, right? I felt like Seinfeld. Remember when George Costanza is running around going, what's it going to be all about? And they say something weird, and they go, that would be a show.
That would be a show.
Right? So it was really nice today to be able to spend some time running around. Let me say also hello to Janile. Janile, I owe you a prayer bowl. And it's Janile, so I think I'm going to do 2 prayer bowls or 3 prayer bowls. It's Janile. Believe me, she deserves 3 of them for sure. Janile, thank you so very much for joining us here on All Natural Being. I'm doing great, Ian. How goes it with you? I have to tell you, I was a little concerned the other day. They said you had like a major earthquake or something near Heathrow. And, of course, if you listen to the news over here, which, why you would, I would have no idea, but I happen to. And they go, everyone in England thinks this is the big one. I don't know. I thought Yellowstone was the big one. I thought San Andreas Fault was in California. Is every city have the big one? Is that what it is, Henry? Everyone's waiting for an earthquake, I guess, right? A volcano, whatever it is.
Whatever can shake sense.
So, Ian, nice to see you. I hope everything's well. And I was waiting for the report, Ian, here on Facebook, when people say, I'll check in safe. There's a natural disaster, and if you live apparently within 100 miles of it, you go, I should check in and let people know here on Facebook that it didn't come the whole 100 miles, or whatever it is. So I'm trusting, Ian, that since you're on with us tonight, everything's okay, and the earthquake didn't get you. Good evening again to Janile. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. So we were driving around, as I was saying earlier, Henry, we were driving around.
Yep.
And then Rita goes, man, this would have been great. This is what you guys should do a show about. So if it's cool with you, we'll get to Free for All Friday. Don't forget, you can call toll-free 833-462-3968. 833-462-3968. Remember, it's 833-GO-BE-YOU. That's it. Not the crap weasel you. Not the crazy Meshuggah you. Not the ego you, right? The ego, the octopus, all the toxic tentacles running through your mind. Not that you. The real you. The all-natural you. So, Henry, we were talking today about what people fear. And it was fascinating to me because you said, they fear the unknown. Right. And then if I remember correctly, I came up with I made up the word, triposan. Yes. Just some totally word. And I go, have you not heard of triposan? You're like, no. I said, it's unknown to you? And you said, yeah, right? It's unknown to me. And I go, were you afraid of that? And you go, tryptosan? What'd you say?
No.
So, wait a minute. I thought you said people's fear is of the unknown. Right. They fear death because, it's unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, then you should also be fear of whatever. Whatever I said, right? So what is it everyone's afraid about? I don't get it.
Well, again, I think it's the fear of the unknown. And it's definable by each individual. It's our own perceptions, it's our own definitions, and all of that is predicated on how we were raised, our belief systems. And so it's very difficult to kind of narrow down specifically what it is everybody fears. But the unknown, I think, covers a whole lot. And an unknown, again, is defined by our perceptions and our training and our learning and our belief systems. So if we look at the major concerns, the major reasons for fear,
right?
Everybody's afraid of dying. Well, no, I've heard that story a few times.
So have I.
Well, I'm not afraid of death. I'm just afraid of the way I'm going to die. I don't want it to be painful, and it doesn't matter. You end up dead, so
Right.
it really doesn't matter. And to me, it's an excuse. No, it's the death that people are afraid of. The situation with all of this, being alive in this, what we want to call reality, is none of us leave it alive. We all die. So why are we afraid of it? It's the natural, probably the major part of us living is the death part of it all. We weren't alive before we got here, and
Sure.
we are alive now, and then we die, and so we're not alive then. I tend to think of that differently.
All right. How so?
Okay? In that we were alive before, and then we're here to experience this existence,
Okay.
and then we live again.
Good point.
And so I don't. That's why I don't fear death. It never has concerned me, because I never could understand it from the age of 9 when I died from pneumonia. I never understood what all the fear was. I mean,
Sure.
it's a great place we go to. It's beautiful. It's
Right.
absolutely, the feelings are you can't even describe them. So why fear something that is unknown?
Well, that's why when I made up the term earlier, I said to
Exactly.
you, whoop snippets, whatever it was I said, but it's unknown. Let me also say hello to David Ray Bowman. Thank you very much, David, for joining us here on All Natural Being. Nice to see you pop by. But you're absolutely right. If it's this fear of the unknown, we're not afraid of Christmas gifts. We don't know what's in the wrapper, right? They're Christmas gifts.
Unless we cheat.
Unless you cheat, right? Wish my sister Janice were listening. When we were younger, she used to run down like Christmas Eve, open everything to see if she'd be excited, retape them, and then go back to bed. So for everyone, and like my sister Janice, they probably already know what's in the present. But a surprise birthday party,
Yeah.
we don't live in fear of, oh my God, I'm going to have a birthday this weekend. I just live in constant dread of someone throwing a surprise birthday party for me. That's an unknown. We don't live in fear of that.
No.
So what is it specifically that you think that everyone says, oh, I'm going to try to prevent death? I'm going to try. And I have said countless times, I refer to it as going home, right? If nothing else, where your energy came from in the very beginning, it's going back to that reservoir. It's going, and I loved what you said, Henry. If you could expand on a little more about, I think you said in the movie The Matrix, that we all end up like individual AAA batteries,
That little
right?
battery, exactly.
Those little batteries.
And we are an energy supply. We are, no matter how we look at ourselves.
Okay.
When you deal with emotions and the release of emotions, it's energy. Like everything else it's energy. And so we really are literally batteries for whatever it is out there that wants to survive on energy.
Sure.
And so fear is a great generator of energy. So why not keep us in a state of fear? We keep producing energy, and at our expense, of course.
Sure.
And so we just keep doing this, and we don't know any better. So because we're taught to live in fear. I mean,
Sure.
fire and brimstone from the Bible, and everything else from our
Do as I
from our
say.
parents.
Do as I say, not as I do when we're little grown up. But
Exactly.
don't we reach a point where we want to outgrow that kind of tutor-student relationship? Don't we want to outgrow that point where we go at one point, nah, I think I'll take control of the cockpit. I'm tired of having my cognition hijacked by someone else's definition of fear. What does it take for us to finally get to that point one day where we go, yeah, you know what, I'm done with it. I'm not gonna listen to the Meshuggah anymore, and I'm gonna follow the whisper of my own heart. What does it take for that tipping point to occur in our minds?
Well, I think that's a great question for the audience. I really do. I think that is something that we need to dwell on. We have to look at it. What is our satiation level? What is our pushing point? What is our button that finally gets us off our butts to say, we're not going to put this, I'll put this anymore.
Right.
I mean, we know that life has got to be better than what it is. Well, the only thing keeping us from having the life that we really would like is us.
Is us.
Nobody is.
Yes.
We seem to think everybody else is in control, but the bottom line is we're in control
Right.
of giving them control. So we take control back, and we are it. We're happy. We're complete. We're content. We have to just define all these terms, and
Sure.
I think that's the biggest problem we have is we use these terms that don't make sense, and we try to define them to make sense. I mean, human nature. It makes no sense.
Yeah,
It makes no sense to me. I don't believe there's a such thing as human nature.
Well, let me say hello to everyone in the thread, and then let's
please.
unwrap that a little bit, if you will. I want to say, Kelly.
Kelly?
Here's the thing, and I feel horrible about it because you could call it extortion. It's a bad word, but I'm like, Kelly's like, and I said, I want you to come and meet Henry. She goes, I'd love to meet Henry. Come on by. And I go, well, you would have to come in here and be a guest on the show. I think Kelly would be great on air. So I'm like, Kelly, come on. So maybe I don't want to out it, right? I don't want to say she's right because our people aren't in negotiations. There's nothing, my people aren't talking to her people or anything else, but I'm hoping maybe she'll get a chance to run over at some point. Hello, Kelly.
Come on over.
She'll get to run over. And then maybe Monday night. I'm giving her plenty. It's like 72 hours, right? It's at least 48 hours. I'm giving her plenty of a runway to go. Maybe she can come over and hang out. Also, Tamara, thank you so much for joining us here on All Natural Being. It is nice, my friend, to see your smile. Tamara and we just go way back. We've been friends for a lot of years, and I won't tell you how many because I'm just not. She looks like she still looks like she's 21, right? But we go back a lot of years. So let me say hello to Tamara, and thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. So we were driving around today, and another thing that popped up that I wanted to talk about was this whole concept of artificial intelligence. And I'm the worst, right, Henry? Because I'm always the one saying, I'm not going to use the kiosks. Even today when we went to the grocery store, which is a Chianti run for us, right? But we went to the grocery store for limes and Chianti, and I refused to use the scan, the bag me. The scan me or I'll scan me things. I wanted to go to a real human being.
Maybe stand in line. Yeah,
stand in line. I stand in line a little bit. Right? Come on, let's go. I love those little dividing things. Those little plastic things you put in line. Go, come on, move it along, pal. Move it along. What's the sign says? 10 items or less.
Yes.
You obviously mastered the acumen to be given a permit to operate a motor vehicle here in the state of Ohio. You can't count to less than 10. Move it along. In any event, I'm just horrible about given into this whole sense of AI, but we had a conversation about it today. In some situations, artificial intelligence is it's not cleaning our clock. It's really helping us. We were talking about the pharmacy and the like. What's your take on all that?
Well, you're right. There is a variation of this that really does, it does help us. Yes. And where you can have an AI computer can actually set up prescriptions based on your actual history and your present medications that you're taking, and weed out whether or not the prescription you're about to take is going to do more harm than it is going to do good.
Sure. Or possible conflicts with other things that might be in your file.
Exactly. And I agree. I think that is phenomenal. The bottom line, though, is all it does is eliminate our responsibility to ourselves. It gives us that sense of out. We can blame something else for our problems, over medication or an under medication or incorrect medication.
Sure.
We are, regardless of how we've been raised and how we've been taught, we are bloody responsible for ourselves. Nobody else is. We are. And what all of the computers, what all of the AI does is simply remove that responsibility from us. So, yes, I agree there's a benefit in some things,
okay,
where AI can come in and outthink and outperform a pharmacist, for example, who
sure
is saddled with being human and have the emotional ties or financial ties, depending on the pharmaceutical company that has gotten to them, and will make errors. Where AI so long as we're honest with the AI, will be probably pretty straightforward and go with 250,000 prescriptions without ever making a mistake.
Without a single mistake.
Exactly. But again, it falls on us. It falls on the responsibility of each human to be human, whatever that means to each of us.
Well, let me throw this in, right? Because we talked about this today, and it's we have two vehicles. Right, one is who knows, but it's like a basically a big giant ball of bubble wrap on wheels. Right, everything is alarmed. You back up, if a bird flies within a quarter of a mile of your backup camera, an alarm goes off. If you're pulling forward, an alarm goes off. If you drift into a lane, an alarm goes off. No matter what you do, an alarm goes off, right? I think if you burped, an alarm would go off. Right? Go, oh, there's something about the air quality inside the vehicle here, and prompting you to roll down the windows. The thing is just alarmed to where if I hop into the other car, which has no alarms, I find myself thinking, I'll just keep backing up till the alarm goes off. I'll just keep drifting. I'll just keep playing, check my look in the rear view mirror. I'll do this, not because if I get into trouble, the alarm's going to go off. And then it's usually a mile or so into the trip where I go, oh, wait a minute, this car doesn't have any alarms. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, it's almost as if I tend in the moment to start getting a little lazy because I think, don't worry. A logarithm, right, that is designed to let me know, the alarm, the algorithm that's designed to let me know I'm in trouble or I'm pending trouble. When I get behind the wheel of the car that doesn't have it, I'm driving like it is. So I've already surrendered a little bit, right? And you're a good friend of mine. I say all the time, I'm a menace behind the wheel, right? People go, why don't you text and drive? I go, because I can barely make it down the road fully paying attention to what I'm doing, right? So I don't want to. People joke all the time, well, don't you like driving? I go, no, I would be chauffeured every day for the rest of my life and never lose the moments of sleep. But here's the thing. I'm beginning to believe you that when I drive the car that has all the alarms and the bubble wrap and the satellite GPS drifting out of the lane sensors, and then I get into the old, arguably the piece of junk that was, 2 years older, but
it tells you to buckle
still
your
$250 million. Yes, it just tells you to buckle your seatbelt. That's about it, and no alarms. I find myself already kind of surrendering my need to pay attention in the moment to the artificial intelligence. So maybe there really is something to that. Maybe, but then how do I get to have my cake and eat it too? So what I'm saying to you is I'm disingenuous enough to say, okay, artificial intelligence, if you're my pharmacist, I want to make sure you don't give me a medication that's going to kill me. So I'm a fan of artificial intelligence that way. I'm a fan of the alarms in the car. I'm the fan of this and that. But then who am I to turn around and go, because I've said it before, even on this show, we want to perfect artificial intelligence. We haven't even perfected human intelligence. Now we want to infect computers with our inability to use our cognition. So where do I get off?
Well, it's irresponsibility. Thank you, Brian. But it's what it is. You left the door open.
I'm all over it. I know.
It's we're not being responsible. I mean, bottom line, we are responsible. You can go through the whole 9 yards. These cars that don't require drivers. I mean, you can sit in the back seat and play chess and drink and do whatever you want to, and these cars drive down the highway. Well,
I can't wait.
When it gets into an accident,
right?
Guess who's still responsible?
Right.
The one sitting in the back seat that didn't think they were responsible. So we cannot ever escape that. It's a human element that we have thrown away. We have done everything we can to avoid the responsibility. And it is the most important thing we have that defines us as human, that we are responsible. And we can run down a list. We can do a month-long show on exactly all the things that we throw away our responsibility on.
Sure.
And yet
we abdicate our authority or abdicate our responsibility.
Absolutely. Discrimination, war.
Sure. Politics.
Politics. Religion.
Economy. Religion. All of it. Yep.
We are responsible regardless. And we can point fingers and keep pointing fingers, but the bottom line is it all points back to us. We are responsible, whether we like it or not. And we will do everything we can to shirk that responsibility. And we are doing it. That's what AI is all about, shirking that responsibility. We are responsible for our health. We're responsible to be intelligent enough to investigate what it is that's going on, why we're developing ADHD, why we're developing cancer, why we're developing all of these Parkinson's. And we are responsible for this, but we just as soon not be bothered. It's somebody else's job.
833-462-3968. 833-GO-BU. You have an example of artificial intelligence, good or bad, right? I loved it, as Rita was talking about earlier, when you're at the equator. And you stick one hand out, you're in the northern hemisphere, the other hand out, you're in the southern hemisphere. You might fall on the spectrum, you might be on either side of the spectrum. Are you a fan of artificial intelligence? You think it's a good idea? Are you not necessarily a fan? Because I got to tell you, Henry, I find myself waffling. Sometimes I'm a fan of artificial intelligence, and other times I go, no, I don't think I want to surrender human wherewithal. And then, as you and I have discussed many a times, what if there's no such thing as human nature? What if human nature, because it's in their nature. Well, what if it's human potential? What if that's the ultimate nature, and you either exercise that potential or you abdicate that authority and give it up to AI? Then it's no wonder all kinds of people are sad and disappointed and on opioids and find all these reasons to be disgruntled with life.
That's right. And that's where you're at.
With life.
That's where you're at. Is we are dealing with a situation that we are in a position of not understanding what our potential really is, what our responsibilities are to us. Human nature, human nature, when you really want to look into a definition of human nature, it is a characteristic that creates a reaction, the same reaction by every human being on the planet.
Okay.
All right. Well, if you really think about it, all right, you cut off somebody's head in front of a camera. Okay, so for Americans, that is really kind of offensive.
I'm told.
Okay. But if you are a headhunter, that's just a daily business.
Sure.
So you can't come to a commonality on that. Okay.
I'm only laughing because when you say that, all the time I'm saying on the show, go be you.
Yeah.
So what if a headhunter's listening to the show and I tell the headhunter to go be you?
That's it.
Hey, guillotine boy.
That's
right? Right?
But that's why
what are you doing?
I don't believe that there is anything such as human nature, because there is no singular thing that you can actually put your finger on that every human being would react the same way. Now, you might find every American would react this way, or every German would react this way, or every headhunter would react this way, but not every human. And for human nature to be defined,
right,
it has to fit every single human being.
So then, can I ask you a question then? If we default, can human potential, then my understanding or my belief in always putting your heart's highest priority top of the list, can human wherewithal be that common denominator? Because if we don't have a nature, we at least have a potential.
We all have a potential, and I think everybody does. And again, when you throw in religion and you throw in politics, you throw in culture, and the biggest one is subcultures, yes, you have a tremendous mix in that brewing pot that the witches work in. And so it's really hard to really nail the best definitions. One of the things that I preached on so many of the writings that I have done has been the most important thing we have to do is when we're talking about something, anything, we have to define the words that we're using, because if we're not on the same page, and I say apple and you see pear.
Sure. I love pears.
We're no longer talking.
I love pears.
Yeah, me too.
The nice thing about pears is they don't have like Macintosh and Golden Delicious. It's just like an apple. There's like 37 varieties. It's like a Heinz ketchup or whatever, the 37 varieties of whatever it puts in it. But a pear, just a pear.
Just a pear.
Just a pear. Now, maybe people say, there's a Bartlett pear.
Yes.
Well, I couldn't name another one. There's a Bartlett pear is another pear, but I like pears. Sorry.
No.
I'm like a dog, right? Shiny things. I'd be a lousy bass. I'd be swimming around, and every time a lure came in the water that was shiny, I go, oh, look, I like pears. All right, flip him right onto the back of the boat. I'm sorry. But could we then say that when you exercise human potential, it's uniquely yours, because how it unfolds is up to you. And I think if people give themselves permission to go, no, I have a potential, I most certainly have a right to exercise it, and the heck with you if you try to stand in the way of me exercising that potential. Now, again, not screaming fire in a crowded movie theater, not doing all these other things, right? But you have a potential, as long as it's not injurious, physically injurious to another human being. You have that potential, and you have every right to stand for that potential. Every right to say, no, this is how I'm going to exercise it. This is how I'm going to put my heart's highest priority. This is my primal scream, damn it. And I'm going to holler it. Don't we have that right?
Absolutely we do. And I think that's where we miss the boat. It's not about conforming to society, because society is more messed up than we are as individuals. And it's not sitting and trying to conform to our subcultures or to being an American or to be, I mean, what in the world does that even mean?
Sure.
You know, we don't have a clue. We only know what we've been taught. And it's a rude awakening when you find out that everything you've been taught has been a lie. And now you have to go through and say, wow, then who am I? If everything that I identify with, what makes me who I am,
allegedly,
is a lie,
so to speak,
right? Then why do you think we have so much anger? We're in defense. We actually see it as a defensive mode. I have to now defend who I think I am, or who I believe I am, or who I have been told I am, or taught, or what some priest told me I was.
Right.
And it's all a sham.
Some pundit.
It's all a sham.
Sure.
And so we really have to find out for ourselves. Again, one of the images I use, it's on my website. It's an image in Holt putting his hand on the mirror. That's who we answer to, is the one in that mirror.
Sure.
And the one in the mirror is the one that's supposed to be reflecting who we are inside. And honestly, we don't even have a clue who we are on the inside because we've been taught all of this stuff.
Well, do you think that maybe then that's a part, and let me say good evening to Larry. Nice to see you, Chief. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. Henry, if you don't know this, Chief Fleming, Larry Fleming, hired me in my first law enforcement gig.
Thank you, Larry.
Well, thank you, Chief, very much.
I love that.
He was instrumental in taking a shot at me and grooming me in the very beginning. So I owe a lot of my early career to Chief Fleming. So thank you, Chief. It's nice to see you as always. Henry, the point I was trying to make, or I was getting ready to make, was that I think maybe that's why everyone is so agitated. Yeah. Everyone is so outraged. You know, when I talk about hot heads wrapped in thin skin, I think it's because maybe at some level they realize that they're buying into all this craziness. They're buying into all these things they've been taught. It's not really them, but they feel handcuffed. They feel bound by these constructs. And I think ultimately they're mad because they intuitively can sense that it's all baloney. It's not, when we say, again, go be you, it's putting your heart's highest priority top of the list, not asking for permission, not asking for the committee vote, not asking for the meshuggah of the marketplace, but what is your heart? What is your wit and wisdom telling you? And is it possible that that's what everyone is so upset about? That's why everyone's walking on eggshells. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think that's a large part of what this audience is about. You know, we are seeking, we're looking to try to understand why we're in the positions we are. I mean, why are we in so much debt?
Okay.
Well, because we've been told this is the way it is. It's un-American to not be in debt, you know, and go for the American dream. Well, I prefer to have people go for the American life, which means you better wake up, because that dream is a dream. It's not real. And we have to have the American life. And if that's going to be the case, then we have to define what that is.
Sure.
And you define it by yourself. It's not what the consensus of society says. It's what you believe about it in yourself. The problem, again, is that we have been fed so many lies. We really don't know how to think. We don't know how to ask questions. We don't know. It's why the intimidation to try to call in. We're afraid. We're afraid because we don't know the right question to ask. We don't know how to ask it. My dad was absolutely amazing when it came to that. I mean, I'd ask my dad, "Do you know what time it is?" "Yep." That's what I got. Could you tell me what time it is? Sure can. You know, and my dad really pushed it. He says, "Henry, if you ever want to understand what life is about, you better learn how to ask questions."
Sure.
Because you're never going to get it sitting in the background waiting for someone else to ask the question, because they're never going to ask it, nor are they ever going to ask it correctly. So learn to ask the question correctly, and you'll get your answers. It's then up to you to do what you're supposed to do with that answer. And you better make it knowledge, because if you don't, you've wasted a great question.
That is true. And a great virgin gray matter, if you will, right? Yes. The ability to get that wisdom in and decipher it for yourself. Let me say hello quickly to Mitzi. Mitzi, thank you so very much for joining us here on All Natural Being. Chief, you are absolutely welcome for my comments. Thank you. So I also wanted to talk a little bit, Henry, this evening, when we talked about people in terms of being nervous, when we talked about people that are timid or that they're afraid of all these different things going on. Ian says, still driving the piece of junk, needs to stay awake. I'm with you, right? I'm with you. But every time I hop into the driveway, I go, all right, do I have the rolling bubble or am I in this on my own? So we were talking before about nervousness or intimidation or fear. So your dad did a great job when he said, do you know what time it is? Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me? Well, I could. Sure. There's nothing wrong with my vocal cords. I can see the clock. I know how to tell time. My voice seems to be working okay. I'm answering you, right? So what is it? What's the specific question you think that we have to ask ourselves? If you were your dad giving advice to that younger you, what's the question that we have to ask ourselves that compels us in that particular moment to go, I'm done. I am going to put my heart's highest priority top of the list. I'm not going to be nervous. I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be shoved into the back seat, into the junk drawer, into the dustbin. What do you think that question is that we could ask ourselves?
I think it's important that we understand and really go for, who am I?
Okay.
Number one. Number two, why am I really here?
Okay.
What is my purpose? If we can get into that and really start working with that, we actually start to peel away those onion skins of who we are not.
Sure.
We can't answer who we each are because we have to eliminate all of the mashugana, as you mentioned, to strip away and find out who we are. So strip away the who we are nots.
So it's more. So you would say then it's more about question marks than exclamation points.
It is.
It's not standing and saying, this is who I am.
No.
We start the process by going, this is who I'm not.
Because we don't know. We've lived a life of lies. So how can we honestly say, this is who I am? It's been nothing but lies to us. What we believe in, how we believe, what is important. Why do we work so hard? Right. What is the whole purpose of it all? We have been lied to. We're supposed to be happy.
Right.
And I can attest, walking down the street, looking people in the eye, they're not happy because you just can smile at them and they just look at you like you're crazy and they walk by. That tells me we have a problem. And that problem is us. We are the problem because we haven't really delved into the whys. Why are we here? Who are we? What are we supposed to be doing here? Why is this fraction of sensory perception
the norm?
The norm.
Absolutely. Great question.
When 99% of and better, is outside of our perceptibility. Yet, is that not real? We say it's not real because we can't see it, or we can't touch it, or we can't taste it, or feel it,
hear it.
But it's as absolutely real as we are.
Right.
And that begins to question, how real are we? How accurate is our sense? I mean, our life is built on our eyes, our sight. That is the strongest sense we use. And we are so deceived by our eyes. I mean, you've been a police officer.
Sure.
How many times have you gone to a crime scene, talked to 25 different witnesses, and you got 25 different answers for the same thing?
Yeah, but I was very lucky because I could always spot guilty people. Right.
Well,
to be honest with you, this will only get me in trouble. The feds will come. Let me say good evening to Candace. Candace, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. You got to go to jury duty. People go, what do you think? Oh, please put me on the jury. Why? Oh, I can spot guilty people like that. Next, the defense attorney is usually the first one to jump and go, he's out of here. Goodbye. Somebody validate his parking. Tell him not to answer another question. And if I just go, Your Honor, they go, objection, get him out of here, right? Because I can spot guilty people like that. No, I absolutely agree with you. And it's, they did this one story, one test where have you heard about the gorilla and the bouncing basketball?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So,
I actually watched the video.
Yeah, you watch the video, and then you go, there was no gorilla. And it's not like the gorilla sprinted through. It's not like it bungee jumped into the center of the frame and then bungee jumped out. The gorilla comes in, goes to the middle of the frame. I think it was a young woman in the gorilla suit, beats on her chest, turns around and walks out. But the doctors had said to everyone watching, make sure you pay attention how many times the ball bounces between the two opposing teams. And more than half the people missed the gorilla. And it's not like it was a white backdrop and a white gorilla.
No.
Right? It was as stark a contrast as the dark-haired gorilla up against the perfectly white background, and more than half the people missed it.
That's right.
So what is it about our own lives that, given an opportunity, given the 20-minute victories, given the sense of, in this particular moment and all the time, the universe, Rita said to me today, do you ever just look at it and go, man, just how lucky are you? How fortunate are you? How full of reason are you for gratitude? These things just seem to be unfolding. Well, what happens to those of us that miss those gifts in the moment, that miss the universe unfolding, that miss those steps? I tend to think we're all too busy looking at the carrot at the end of the stick. We're all too busy running from A to get to B because B is going to make us happier and more fulfilled and more talented and stronger and faster and cuter and all the rest of this. But what if that's it? This occupational blindness that comes when you're constantly looking for a goal and you're not paying attention to all the cool things unfolding right about you in the moment.
Well, and a large part of this is we are limited by our brain. You know, the brain doesn't know right from wrong. It doesn't know left from right. It doesn't know real from fiction. And there's been so many tests that have been shown to prove that. I mean, you can look at an apple, and I can tell you, stare at the apple, and what do you see? Can you describe it? And the brain sees this apple because it's just simply visual impulses that come through your eyes, go through the optic nerve, and become impulses on the back of your brain. I can then tell you to close your eyes and picture the same apple. And
okay.
And your brain will see the same apple. It's not there, but the brain sees it as real. And what they have done is show now that because of the amount of data that the brain comes in, again, we have 5 senses that we are aware of, the sight and the hearing and the smell and the taste and the touch. And so what the brain does is it takes assumptions in its surroundings.
Okay.
It pulls in data, and then because it can't handle all of the data
Sure.
it brings in, it makes assumptions about others. So when you've been primed to watch the bouncing ball,
Sure.
how many times? The brain is focused on that bouncing ball. It's not seeing the gorilla walk past.
Right. Well, then let me ask you this. Can we get to the point where I think you should have the assumption that you're a badass? I think that you should have the assumption that you have all kinds of things to be grateful for. I think you should have the assumption that you're literally one big bag of potential just this side of infinity. Why couldn't we readopt, if it's all about the assumptions we adopted when we were younger, right? Why couldn't we readopt a whole new bag of assumptions now and go, no, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be fulfilled. I'm going to take this potential and I'm going to beat it into the ground. Why couldn't we do that? If what you say is true, it's all how we represent it to ourselves, that then really our attitudes become our adventure. Keeping an attitude no matter what, that becomes the avventura, something about to happen. Why couldn't we do it that way?
We absolutely can. It's just up to us to do that. We have to disregard our learnings. We have to disregard the belief systems. We have to break all those barriers down that we use to define who we are. I mean, you ask somebody who they are. Well, I'm a Democrat.
Sure.
I don't think so.
Right.
I'm a doctor. No, I didn't ask that.
Right.
I want to know who you are, not what
Right.
you do or what you
Right.
believe.
Right.
I want to know who you are.
Sure.
So once we can start to break down those barriers, yes, there is no limit to our potential. The limiting factor is us. We're the limiting factor to everything. And so when we can finally realize that we are the ones creating this paradigm we live in,
Right.
that we are the ones responsible, we are the ones at fault, we are the ones to blame. And once you can accept that, the person in the mirror, then you can start to change, and then you can start to see things the way you really need to see them. And you're right. Yes, we are a bag of potential. We absolutely are. We just don't see it yet.
Well, I love what you're saying, because then ultimately you can say, all right, I exercise the remote control. I'm going to crank the volume up. I'm going to rip the knob off. I'm going to have a life that just brings a smile to my face. I'm going to have a life where other people look at me and go, how did he pull that off? Right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's something we all can do.
Yes, we all can. But we have to be ready for it.
And what does it take to get ready for it? I mean, other than saying, okay, great, I'm going to change my assumptions. I'm going to look back on my memories that don't support me and go, those are all crap weasel thoughts. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start living life like a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we go ahead and change our assumptions. But what's the very next thing we have to do? Because into every life, unless you live here in Columbus, then it's buckets will fall. But into every life, a little bucket must fall, right? But you're going to be beaten down right away, and people are going to go, "Oh no, you can't do that."
Of course.
What do you do then?
Again, the mirror. It's what is really your intention? What is it? What is your potential? What is it who you are? How do you want to define yourself? How do you really want to leave your legacy? I mean, that's an ego side of it, is having to leave a legacy. But bottom line is, what is it? What's the mark you want to make that when you're no longer here, which we won't be, that you want someone to say about you? That, yep, he followed the crowd, he was part of society, and absolutely just agreed with everything that went on, and that's about as inspirational as they were. Or it was against the grain. Didn't believe in the I can't. Didn't believe in the I won't. And didn't believe in the I don't know. And believed in the I could. Your choice.
I could, and maybe I should, right? Or I will. I have every right to live this life full of passion. I remember once with your friend our friend Izurba, and we were talking about, it's like when you bite a piece of fruit and your mouth just waters.
Yes.
Well, why can't you live a life that when you taste that life, your mouth just waters? Exactly. There's nothing that says you can't do that.
No, you can't. There's nothing that says you can't. We just don't know how. And that is what this whole process is. That's what all of what you're trying to do, is to try to explain to people how we do this. Give them examples. Lay it out as best we can in order to give people at least the understanding that when you take a step down a path that doesn't exist, now you're creating your own path.
It
is a very simple thing to say, and it's an extremely difficult way or experience. It's very tough to strip away everything you know, to lay out a beautiful field or a nice blanket of white snow and say, wow, my first step out there is my first step. And wherever the next step leads is I am responsible for this path. It's mine. Wow. It's a major responsibility. And a lot of people are not ready for it. They're just not. And that's what we're trying to do, is get people ready for it. Because this is what we have to do if we're really going to change things. I mean, we look around this world, look around this country. Man, it's not a happy place anymore.
No, it doesn't seem it, does it?
No, and I don't understand this. I mean, we got flag wavers, and we've got people preaching being American and defending it against Muslims and defending it against anybody coming into the country. And this was a country of immigrants.
Right.
I mean, my grandfather was Japanese. My father was French.
Right.
I'm an immigrant.
Right.
And yet, I grew up in this country. I was born in Flushing, New York. So, I don't get what we're trying to do here and why we're trying to do this, because that's not who we are. Every human being out there is our brother and sister. We are all part of the human race. There's no boundaries on the human race. There's no borders. There's no flags. There's no nationality. It's the human race. So why are we limiting it? Why do you have to be a particular color? Why do you have to be a particular religion? We are part of the human race. That's the only race there is here. And yet we want to divide it down. And we willingly do this. Do I understand it? No. Why we do this, I don't understand. But I sure as the Dickens want to stop it.
Well, I would also say that it would seem to me that it's just someone being as Mitzi says, it's stressing me to no end. I think it's a function of being afraid of your potential.
Oh, I love that.
And I think that my sense is, right, because everyone's worried about protecting, what they perceive to be theirs. Everyone's worried about protecting it, but you'll let random thoughts, you'll let vitriol, you'll let opinions of other people, you'll let all these words, all these feelings of another person in your head to ricochet around and create all kinds of collateral damage in your gray matter. Mm-hmm. But, oh, no, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I often wonder, and I have to be honest, and it gets me in a lot of trouble, because people say, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I would love the idea to get on a paddleboard and go right to Cuba for a mojito.
Ooh.
Right? I just, right? And I said to a friend of mine today, I wanted to send him something, and he lives in Toronto. Well, just like trying to send you something in Ecuador, you got to go through 8 hours of paperwork. What are you sending? A piece of fruit. Oh, wow, we can't have that happen. Could have fruit flies. Okay, great. Well, by the time it gets through customs, it'll have fruit flies. So there's a part of me that says, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. I'm beginning to believe that this sense of projecting borders is because we don't have borders for our own mind. So we think if we can exercise them externally, it will allow us to stand and go, I really couldn't care less about your opinion of me. And I think when people say, oh, let's go ahead and put deadbolts everywhere else. Mm-hmm. Well, how about deadbolts in your ears? Mm-hmm. How about, instead of inappropriate language, admitting there's inappropriate hearing?
Yes.
And most certainly there's inappropriate thinking. If I can walk up to you and just with some stupid phrase derail your day, derail your destiny because of my opinion, of my treating you like a pincushion, where does that make sense?
It doesn't. And whose fault is that?
Oh, I think it's the person doing the hearing, to be honest with you.
That's exactly whose fault it is, and that's us. And we allow all of this to happen. We allow what news reporters, that's a wrong term. We allow celebrities sitting there trying to tell us exactly what we're supposed to be afraid of and what we're supposed to like. And we listen to them, and we think that they are correct. And then we let someone else who's probably worse off than we are in our own self-esteem make us feel even worse. Again, it's senseless. It really is absolutely senseless to me. We are in control of ourselves. We just gave it up. And for some reason, we don't want it back. We don't want to be responsible. We don't want to. I think we just don't want it anymore.
Well, that could very well be. And I have to tell you, sir, that, when people talk about, you have a First Amendment right to say what you want. There's a right to free speech.
Right.
And all I've asked is, what happened to your right to free hearing? There's nothing that says because you have an opinion, I have to adopt it as marble in my life.
Exactly.
Kelly says, I never forget a face, but in your case, I'll make an exception. Groucho Marx.
Yes.
That's a great one, right?
Yes.
I love that. I was just talking about it last night when we were talking about the light given off by a burning bridge. But, everyone's busy to talk about, you have a First Amendment right of protection to free speech. How about free hearing? Mm-hmm. How about you don't have to listen to all the craziness in the world?
No,
you don't have to listen to all these single-digit IQs running around, accusing you of this and accusing you of that.
That's right.
Okay, I get in trouble all the time when I say there's no such thing as inappropriate language. Great. It shares the spectrum, 50-50 then at least, with inappropriate hearing. You can't have inappropriate speech without, what's the old saying, it takes two to tango? You can't have inappropriate speech without having inappropriate hearing. It does you no good to play darts if all you have are darts and not a board to shoot for. Mm-hmm. Right? Can you imagine seeing someone out in the middle of a field with a set of darts and they're throwing them and then gravity pulls them back to the earth? There's no dartboard. Don't be a freaking dartboard. Don't be a pincushion. Don't be a balloon waiting for someone to pop you so that you can go ahead and be all outraged. You can be victimized. You can be, you can be offended. You can be all these other things. Well, you let them pop your balloon. So I got to tell you, you got some skin in the game here, in my opinion.
You do. And I think that part of it is also, remember, you're throwing a dart at no dartboard is crazy. But throwing a dart that doesn't have a tip is even crazier. Yes, we have a right to say whatever we want to say, but we have a responsibility to what comes out of our mouths. And that part we can't forget.
Okay, but here's the thing. You're right. We can't forget that. But I can't control what comes out of your mouth. I can control what goes into my ears.
Correct.
Right? So I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is we get to the point where we're trying to control, or we're trying to suggest that people should control what comes out of their mouth. And then I go, you know what? You're on your own. Whatever comes out of your mouth comes out of your mouth. I'm responsible for what comes into my ears, and I simply refuse to let you in the front door with a couple of cans of spray paint to run around and put your graffiti all over my interior decorating, all over the construction that I've built in terms of my own gray matter and what I think it means to put my heart's highest priority top of the list. So I agree with you, 50-50, where you could say, okay, great, Brad, we got to watch what comes out of her mouth. And I say, great, we got to watch what comes into our ears. Because if you and I watch what comes into our ears, who the hell cares what comes out of another person's mouth? Well, I don't care.
No,
I don't care at all.
No, I agree. But again, we are responsible for what comes out of our mouths, because anything you want to say, if it's simply inflammatory, or if it's simply a lie,
right,
we are responsible for this.
Right.
And to me, being honest, being responsible, then we'll say the things that are supposed to be said at the time. I'm not saying that it may be nice and it's not going to hurt somebody's feelings, because more than likely it will. But the bottom line is that we are responsible for what we say, how we say it, not because of thin-skinned people, but because we have to understand we are not pure.
Right.
We don't come from a pure state. We don't come from a good intention state. We're still growing. We're still contaminated. We're still trying to strip away all of this mashugana that we have used to define ourselves.
Okay.
Understanding we're way far from that. We don't know who we are, and we have to get to that point. Once we're at that point where we actually do know who we are, then there is no limits, because what we say will be the truth.
Sure.
It will not be biased.
Right.
And it'll be from experience. It'll be from the things that we need to do. So, yes, I agree with what you say, but I disagree in that you got to understand that what's coming out of whose mouth and in what condition and mental state that they're in.
Right.
Sorry, you're responsible.
And I would say to you that if someone offers something that's intended to be inflammatory and it doesn't inflame, that makes them the liar.
Yes.
If someone intends on saying something that's inflammatory and you let it inflame you, that means they told the truth. If someone calls me a jackass and I get worked up about it, guess who was right? They were. Guess who's telling the truth? They were. Because who lets someone's words get in and rattle their day? A jackass.
Right.
So, right? So I think you and I are pretty close to being 50-50 on it.
Yes.
I'm simply suggesting that, yes, do I have a responsibility for the words that I say? Absolutely. It's a lesson I've learned from you and a lesson you learned from your dad. Hey, do you know what time it is? You're damn straight I do. Can you tell me? Yeah, I'm sure I can master the vocal acumen to spit out the time. Still didn't know what time of day it was, did you? So all I'm suggesting is that if someone wants to say something that's inflammatory, in order to complete the mathematical problem, you have to admit you have to be inflamed by those words.
That's right.
And if you're not, it makes them the liar. Right. If you're inflamed, if you're outraged, if they say, oh, you're this, and I go, oh, and I get all worked up, they're telling the truth. Mm-hmm. So it's not their inappropriate language. It's my inappropriate hearing that dictates I guess I'm looking at it like an equation. What say you? Right? I look like a mathematical equation. You have to balance it out.
Yep.
And for someone to say something that's inflammatory, you have to have the tinder.
That's right.
You have to have the combustibles on the inside to be inflamed. If not, let them say what they want. If you're not the dart board, let them throw all the darts they want.
That's right.
Buy them in bulk. Go to Meijer. Right? Go to a yard sale and get all the yard darts. that you can find. If you're not a target, what do you care about the darts?
That's right. I mean, look back at at the stories with Mary Magdalene. Let's go back there. He who is without sin cast the first stone. Believe me, I'm not religious, so don't even go there. But there's so much fact in a lot of the allegory that is there. That's what it's about. It's not about me being right or you being right,
sure,
or me trying to prove you wrong.
Right.
It's all about listening,
sure,
and gaining knowledge.
Right.
And you don't gain knowledge if you're talking.
Sure. Well, that's why I said earlier, it's more about the question marks and the exclamation points.
Yes.
All wisdom is more about the question marks and the exclamation points, I'm thinking. All right, brother. Look at the time. We've been doing this a whole hour. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed today. And Rita was right. She goes, this should have been a show, right? Because we could just, minus the Chianti, we could just arm wrestle all day long over topics like this. So I truly thank you for being here in the studio. And I'm hoping, can you hang out at least, and like I'm asking in front of everybody, right? So you have to say yes to me now. Can you hang out? We'll come back Monday night. How about we do one more night with you in studio, sure, and then we'll go from there. What do you think?
I'd be happy to, Brian.
Great.
It would be fun. And Kelly, get yourself over here. I want to thank everybody too. Take the opportunity while Brian's actually quiet.
What happened? Is my mic cut off?
The muzzle. It's the muzzle. Thank you, everybody. One, for allowing me to become part of all of this, but also to think about this. And part of what I would love for you to do is really start taking a good look. Reflect. Look at yourselves. Mm-hmm. Look at what you really want out of life. Look how you really would like the world to be. And then start emulating that. Do what you can to start emulating it. And you'll be surprised how the world seems to change just in that instant. It's just amazing. And if you have questions, if you have anything that you don't want to talk about on air, I'll just ignore it. No, please send me an email or send a message to Brian.
Send a text.
Send a text, and I'll be happy to answer anything. You want to talk one-on-one, let me know. I'll make arrangements, and we can sit down and do that too. All I want is everybody to get a fair shake and to be able to get through this life successfully, but get through it happy. I mean, that's the most important. Be you.
Go be you.
All
right, brother. We're going to get out of here. Thank you so very much. As always, we'll be back. We're not going to do Sunday night, right? We'll take a couple days off. We'll be back Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern here on IPMNation.com and, of course, on Facebook for Facebook Live and the Fly on the Wall video. You know what? Thank you so very much, Candace. Thank you, Mitzi, very much. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. Michael, if you're still with us, thank you so very much. As you said, you were watching and waiting. I hope that's what you anticipated. Thank you so very much for joining us, everyone. We will see you back here. Candace, Janile, thank you. We will see Ian. We will see you back here, we hope, Monday night at 8 p.m. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being.
IPMNation.com.